The day began like any other in the quiet town of Millview, nestled along the winding roads of West Virginia. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the past had been quietly settled, and the days drifted by without much fuss. Officer Thomas Richards had been patrolling the same stretch of road for nearly 10 years. A former soldier turned officer, Thomas found peace in the familiar. His daily routine was mostly uneventful, punctuated by the occasional speeding violation, teenagers testing their limits, and a rare DUI case that would briefly stir up some gossip before fading back into the calm. By mid-morning, the streets were bathed in the soft golden light of early spring. The cherry blossoms along Oak Street bloomed in soft shades of pink and white, while the sound of birds singing filled the air. Thomas sat in his squad car parked on the corner of Oak and Birch Street, sipping from a cup of coffee that had gone cold long ago. He half listened to the dispatch calls, most of them routine, when something unusual caught his eye. A classic sky blue 1964 Chevrolet Impala coasted smoothly through a stop sign, its brakes never engaging, the car barely slowing down. The maneuver wasn't aggressive, just peculiar. Thomas flicked on his lights, not out of real concern, but out of habit, a sense of duty that never left him. The car pulled over without a fuss, and Thomas took a moment before stepping out of his vehicle. The driver's window was already halfway down as he approached. Behind the wheel sat an elderly woman, likely in her 80s. She wore a pale blue blouse that was neatly buttoned up to the collar, and a weathered gray hat that looked as though it had witnessed many years of wear. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were something else entirely. Sharp, clear, and unblinking, they held no fear or irritation, just a kind of quiet presence, as though this moment was expected. "License and registration, please," Thomas said, his voice steady, practiced. The woman smiled gently and, without hesitation, reached into the glove compartment. She handed over the documents, the paper crisp and well-preserved, as if they had never been touched in years. He glanced at the name on the license, Eleanor Donovan. The name tugged at something in his memory, like a faint image on an old photograph, distant yet familiar. Her birth year read 1939, and something in Thomas's chest tightened. Where had he heard that name before? He excused himself and returned to his patrol car, his mind racing. Typing the name into the police database, the screen blinked before loading a file, so heavily redacted it might as well have been blank. But one line stood out, Eleanor Donovan. Status, deceased, 1971. Classification, highly confidential. Deceased, Thomas muttered to himself. He looked back at the Impala, his thoughts spinning. Before he could process further, his radio crackled to life. Unit 5, Officer Richards, return to your vehicle immediately. Do not detain the driver. Repeat, do not detain the driver. Thomas's brow furrowed. That wasn't protocol. Dispatch never interfered with routine stops. Something was wrong. He grabbed his phone and made a quick call. Chief Walker, I need you here now. Something's off. 7 minutes later, a black SUV rolled up and stopped. Out stepped Chief Walker, his expression unreadable, his movement stiff, as though walking into a scene that was somehow too familiar. He said nothing to Thomas, instead walking straight to the elderly woman's window. Ms. Donovan, Walker said in a tone that was both respectful and distant, it's time. The woman, Eleanor, gave a small nod, her smile faint but filled with something deeper. I knew this day would come, she said softly, as if speaking to herself. Ma'am, you're coming with me, Walker ordered, turning to Thomas. We'll take care of everything. Thomas followed them to the SUV, unsure of what to think. As the vehicle drove away, the silence inside was heavy. Unable to contain his curiosity any longer, Thomas turned to her. Ma'am, he said, who are you really? Eleanor's gaze met his, her expression unreadable. I was a cryptographer, she said slowly. I worked for the Department of National Security back in the late 1950s and 1960s. My job was to decode sensitive transmissions, track leaks, uncover spies. We were following someone, an insider who was feeding classified information to foreign governments. Thomas leaned forward, intrigued. And you found him? Eleanor nodded. A high-ranking officer, a man with a lot of influence. I gathered enough evidence to expose him, but the night before I was going to testify, my apartment was broken into. My dog was killed. I was threatened. The only person who helped me was a man named Samuel Hayes. He was my only ally. He told me I had less than 24 hours to disappear. What did you do? Thomas asked. We staged my death, Eleanor replied. A car crash in the mountains. We forged autopsy records, switched dental IDs, and burned the vehicle. I was dead to the world. I became no one. She paused, her hands folding in her lap. I changed names, moved from state to state, lived in different places, trailers, barns, attics. I never stayed in one place for more than a few months. That was my life until now. Why return now? Thomas asked, his curiosity growing. Because the silence lasted too long, Eleanor said, her eyes distant as the countryside passed by outside the window. And because I finally believe someone will listen. The people I was running from, they're either dead or they no longer have the power to bury the truth. The SUV veered onto a hidden dirt road, passing a security checkpoint before entering a facility that Thomas had never even noticed before, despite patrolling the area for years. Chief Walker entered a code, and the gate opened. They escorted Eleanor inside, and Thomas was left waiting for hours. Finally, Walker emerged, his face grave. You stumbled onto something big today, he said. Eleanor Donovan isn't just any person. She's a patriot. She gave up her life, her identity, for the country. Over the next few days, Eleanor shared everything she had. She handed over documents hidden in safe deposit boxes from coast to coast, including classified tapes, logs, maps, and photographs. Everything she had collected over the years. She had been the one who uncovered the truth, the one who had watched it all unfold in the shadows. The man she had identified had died years ago, but the network he had been part of still had connections, threads that had been left untapped. With her return, those threads began to unravel. The quiet tremors of her actions spread across hidden corners of the government. Former intelligence officers came out of retirement, committees reconvened, and long-lost files were suddenly found. Eleanor's return had triggered a chain reaction that reached back through decades of history. She had been there, hidden in plain sight, watching, remembering. As for Thomas, the ordinary patrols he once knew no longer felt routine. Each car he stopped, each face he saw, he wondered, was this just another hidden story? Another layer of history waiting to be uncovered? In the final days of her debriefing, Thomas visited her again. She greeted him with a warm smile, as if they were old friends. She seemed lighter, more at peace. I never thought I'd live to see the day when the past would let go of me, she said, her voice soft. What will you do now? Thomas asked. Eleanor gazed out the window, eyes burning with quiet resolve. Live. Finally live. The last time Thomas saw her, she stood by a restricted room, a folder labeled redacted, in hand, her posture proud. She had earned the right to be remembered, not as a ghost, but as a woman who refused to be forgotten. Rumors of her relocation circulated, but Thomas knew Eleanor Donovan had lived in the shadows long enough. The truth would rise, just as she had, and it could no longer be ignored.